So just recently, the Denver Nuggets were knocked out of the playoffs in the second round versus the Phoenix Suns in a 4-game sweep. If we're being honest, this series wasn't close at all, and it never seemed like the Nuggets could actually win it. Going into the series, I thought it would be a bit closer, but I was 100% confident that Phoenix would win it, and I was right. It was clear that Denver was missing their star in Jamal Murray, but now their season has come to an end and we have to look onto the offseason for the Nuggets. So in today's video, I'll be naming some things that I believe the Denver Nuggets should do this offseason or just in general for their future. Before we get into the video, I ask you to drop a like on this video as it does help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want weekly NBA content and towards my goal of 1,500 subscribers. Comment on this video, start a conversation with me as I do respond to all of my comments, and play that intro. The first thing I think the Denver Nuggets should do this offseason is looking into getting a player that can guard the perimeter at a good level. And yes, I'm aware that Denver was a pretty good defense this year, as they did rank 12th in defensive rating, and after getting Aaron Gordon, they were actually top 6 in defensive rating, and that's mainly due to the fact that their coach in Michael Malone is fantastic at making defensive schemes. He definitely deserves a lot of credit for that, but this roster simply isn't built to be an amazing defensive roster, and he's done as good of a job as he can. But if they actually want to go to the next level, I think they need to add a defender or two that could guard the perimeter at a great level, because in the postseason their rotation and things like that are pretty good, but their one-on-one defense wasn't amazing, because in the first round they had guys like Facu Campazzo or Austin Rivers guarding Damian Lillard, and those guys tried as hard as they could, but they simply are not a match for a guy like Lillard. And then in the second round, they had to face arguably the best backcourt in the league in Chris Paul and Devin Booker, and those two dominated the series. It was due to the fact that Denver didn't have any great perimeter defenders to at least try and slow them down. Aaron Gordon's a solid defender, but he's better at guarding small forwards and bigger players, not necessarily quick guards. Some players they could look into is maybe Josh Richardson, since he's a very good perimeter defender. Maybe if PJ Tucker leaves the Bucks, they could use him. Derrick Jones Jr. is only in the NBA because of his defense, so he could be a solid option. Avery Bradley used to be one of the best defenders in the NBA on the perimeter, so you could maybe give him a chance. Garrett Temple's a pretty solid perimeter defender. Alfred Payton was a really good defender this season. His offense was just terrible, so that's why he was just hated so much. Maybe they could look into Stanley Johnson from the Raptors, since he's a very good perimeter defender. He just doesn't get that much play time. So it's kind of clear that Denver has a lot of options, and this is a really small fix to the roster, but I think it could really help them out in specific moments and make them a better team. Denver isn't really a team that needs to make a blockbuster move, since the only reason they lost so embarrassingly was because they were without Jamal Murray, but they could do some little things to improve and get better for next season. The second thing I think the Denver Nuggets need to do isn't something really in the off season, but I think next year they need to start playing ball or trade him, because when you look at this roster, they don't even have a good backup center, because their backup center is literally JaVale McGee, and at this point I don't think he's that good, and in general, he's just not as good as Ball. I honestly believe Ball has all-star potential, and the only thing I would complain about Michael Malone is the fact that he doesn't play this man, because Ball is someone who I think is ready to play and contribute, because in the few minutes he plays, he's a guy who gives you instant buckets, and he can also space out the floor. And I would assume that he's not a horrible defender, since he has great length and he's very quick for his size. I doubt he's a lockdown one, but I don't think he's horrible, at least in the regular season. And I don't understand what's the point of having him on this team if you're not going to play him at all, because you're just wasting his career at this point. I think if they're going to play him, they should definitely keep him, but if they're not going to play him this next season, they should just trade him for some assets, because I think he is warranted some assets, because I honestly think he can be a good backup center right now, and not trading him and having a valuable asset like that on your team is just wasting time. I think he could be a great six-man for them, because their depth is far from as good as it used to be just a few years ago, so they could definitely use his production off the bench. Play that man ball. The third thing the Denver Nuggets need is for Jamal Murray to return. It was clear in the postseason that they needed him, because there were certain moments where Nikola Jokic was drawing so much attention from the defense, and they just needed their all-star guard in Murray to be there for Jokic to pass him the ball or hit for him to create his own shot. Denver didn't have a player who could consistently create their own shot, because Michael Porter Jr. isn't at that level yet, and he's very inconsistent. And if the Nuggets have Jamal Murray, I think they win that series probably, or at worst they make it a competitive 6 or 7 game series. So they just need Jamal Murray back, and it will literally fix so much problems on this team. They definitely should have rushed him back to the court because there's no need, but I think when he returns, it'll just make this whole team way better. It's low-key still impressive how they beat a fully healthy Portland team that many people were saying was going to be a top 3 seed in the conference before the year without their second best player. That just shows how good this Denver team can be. Imagine if they had Murray, that series might be a sweep. The fourth thing I think the Denver Nuggets need to do is re-sign some of their certain players who are free agents, because they have unrestricted free agents in Paul Millsap, Austin Rivers, and JaVale McGee, and they have free agents with player options as well as Will Barton and JaMychal Green. And I think they for sure need to hope that Will Barton picks up his player option and that JaMychal Green picks up his player option. I think both of them will, but there is a chance that they will test free agent waters. Denver definitely has to re-sign Paul Millsap, not even really because of his play, just because he's a great veteran, but he also could bring depth to this team. They could let JaVale McGee walk. He's not that important. I think they should also re-sign Austin Rivers because he was solid in the playoffs for them. And then Will Barton is another option for them. Although I wouldn't be too mad if they let Will Barton walk and get some extra money on their cap space. But I think they should re-sign JaMychal Green because he's a solid defender as well. But to conclude the video, there isn't much that the Denver Nuggets should do this offseason in my opinion. Denver's already a team that I think is capable of making it all the way to the NBA Finals, and at full health, when every team's healthy, I honestly believe they're the second best team in the Western Conference. The only thing that's wrong with them is the fact that they're not a healthy team, or they weren't one this previous season. So I don't think Denver will or needs to necessarily make any big moves this offseason, but I definitely think they will be a threat next year. Anyways, guys, that's it for the video. What do you think the Nuggets need to do? Drop a like on this video to help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want weekly NBA content. And tell us for a goal of 1,500 subscribers. Comment on this video, start a conversation as I do respond to all of my comments. And I'm out.